Well, greetings and thank you for joining in for another mini lesson with Les. Today, I have something in mind to share with you that is connected in the Bible with a very common substance, or something in mind from the Bible that's connected with a very common substance that most people very, very much enjoy. If you're hungry and you sit down to the table, which I'm sitting here by one right now, and you are served a little bit of food, many of you probably have something that you reach for before anything else, and that is the salt shaker. There's just something about salt that satisfies the palate, and many of us just end up thinking that we need way more of it than we do, and then the doctor says, "Oh, you got blood pressure problems. You're going to have to cut back on it." But the good side of salt is probably why Paul chose to mention salt when he said this in to the Christians in Colossians chapter 4, verses 5 to 6. He said, "Act wisely toward outsiders, making the most of the time. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you should answer each person." That text can also remind us of the words of Jesus in another text in Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, where he says, "You are the salt of the earth." Now, Paul tells us to act wisely toward outsiders or unbelievers and to make the most of our time that we have with them, I think for a reason. I believe it boils down to the fact that God has given us the task of sharing the message or a message with non-Christians that, like salt, is very good and it is very vital to our or their well-being. We're supposed to share with people the good news about Jesus coming to the earth and how he died for them and us, and how we can be saved from the consequences of sin through trust in Christ. But sometimes people don't want to uh, hear this message because it requires a humbling of the soul. It requires an admission of sin and a change of lifestyle and things that are not always easy to do. That's why wisdom in how we act and how we say what we say is such an important thing. If we treat people in an unkind way or in a condescending way, or we tell them things that make them recognize that or make them think, I should say, that they're not respected, or that their thoughts don't matter, or we trample on their free choice and the way we share with them, the chances are that they're not going to want to hear what we have to say. If the first thing that I say to someone is that they're worst, that they're wrong doing the things that they're doing, and that what they do disgust me, um, I doubt that I'm going to get much of an opportunity to talk to them. They're going to just get out of there. If I am so intent, even I think, on sharing my message that I don't let them get a word in edgewise, I also don't imagine that they're going to take time to listen. I'll probably find that they lose my interest or lose their interest in what I have to say. Or if I just go to a perfect stranger and I start teaching him a Bible lesson out of the blue without getting to know him, without showing any concern for him, I probably am just going to get some strange looks, and they're going to walk away. Someone once wisely said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So Paul tells us to let our speech be gracious and to be seasoned with salt. And he tells us that for a reason. It's so that there can be a hearing, so people will want to listen. There are ways to talk to people that can get them longing to hear, and even wanting to reach for that salt shaker and put some more salt on their food or have some more salt in their conversation. Bible dictionaries would have us understand that to speak with grace means to speak in a way that causes joy or pleasure or gratification favor or acceptance from other people. And if you thought that Christians were always supposed to be serious or to act like a boring Bible college professor just spouting off all of his knowledge, think again. We should be a joy to be around and visit with and laugh with. People should feel loved. People should feel respected by our words and by our deeds. But the fact that we are to season our conversation with salt goes a step further than that. Salt in Jesus' day was used to purify wounds. It was used to flavor food, and it was used to preserve food. Words from Christians can do similar things. What we have to say, for instance, about heaven could be flavorful. It can be something that people long to have more of. What we speak about sin, on the other hand, it can have the effect of leading people to trust in Jesus and be purified from their sin. It may not always feel as good, but it still is good. What we say about how to be saved can help people know how to be saved. It can preserve them for all of eternity. As Christians, we need to be intentional about inserting salt, inserting truth into our conversations with other people, salt that does them good. We should find ways to interest them. We should find ways to tell people about God and look for chances to tell them about Jesus and what he has done for them. We should be on the lookout for and take opportune moments to respectfully help people understand that they need to stop sinning and that they need to stop trusting in the things of the world and instead put trust in and serve God. And we need to tell them how to be saved because that's our job as Christians. And more importantly for them, if we really love them, we would tell them because love demands that we help them escape from hell. You might be like me. You might find it hard to put salt in your conversation. I'll just be honest, that's me. So I want to close this out with a practical idea on how you and I can be more gracious in our conversations and also have conversation with the salt involved. Someone at a Christian preaching and teaching convention taught this and spelled it out for me a few years ago. And I realized I'd done most of this already, but sometimes I missed the most important part at the end. But he said he had used a method called form that had helped guide him in how to speak with people for many years, and he'd gotten opportunity after opportunity to tell people about Jesus, even on places with people like on an airplane where he'd never met the person he's sitting beside before. But he calls it form, and form stands for these things. Number one, F for family, O for occupation, R for religion, and M for message. And he said it's very natural while talking to people to open up the conversation with a question about their family, number one. People love to talk about themselves and they love to talk about those that they're close to. And if you just ask and listen to their answers with interest and maybe do a follow-up question or two, that they will be endeared to talk to you and they will be glad to do so. And it's easy. So doing, it's also easy for us to express our interest in them by asking them about the O, their occupation. The O from form is occupation. Men especially thrive on talking about what they do for a living. And if you sympathize with them in the difficulties of it and you rejoice and identify with them over their successes, that gets them open to talking about other parts of life, which leads us to the R part of form, and that is religion. You can ask people about their religion, and if you listen with interest about what they believe or what they don't believe and why, and if you keep prodding them to tell you more, you learn a whole lot about them, and you learn a lot about how to answer them when you give them the message that you have. And that's something Paul talks about in our verses. So we know how to answer people. Over the course of time, you're most likely going to get a chance. If you have listened with interest and love and acted good toward these people, most likely you're going to get a chance to even tell them the M part of form, to tell them your message. Message is the most important part of this whole thing. And we really need to have a message or a testimony or a mini presentation about Jesus ready to talk to share with people at a moment's notice. But if you're uncomfortable with it, or the situation doesn't seem to be giving the opportunity, or there's not enough time, you can simply just ask people, hey, would you be interested in hearing what I have to say about what I believe? I would love to sit down with you at a later time. And there's a good chance, if they've felt your love, they've felt your genuineness, they've felt your interest, that they'll say, hey, yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And then you can follow up and say, all right, how about this time tomorrow, or this time the next day, and get a chance to actually share with them this good news about Jesus. I want to invite you today to let your conversation be seasoned with salt and with graciousness. Take this little form or method called form and use it to talk to people about family and occupation and religion, and finally your message. Well, I think it's time for me to head off to Freddy's for some good salty fries and some conversation with some good Christian friends. But I pray that me, that all of us would get some opportunity to have some great conversation with some unbelievers, and let our conversation be seasoned with salt. Have a very, very blessed day.